This podcast may contain explicit language. You have been weighed, you have been measured, and you have been found wanting. A Knight's Tale is next. Welcome to the Greatest Movie of All Time podcast, the show that uses a unique grading style to redefine what the greatest movies are. I'm Tom Duncan.
And I'm Dana Duncan.
Tonight, for our 311th episode, we discuss A Knight's Tale from 2001, celebrating its 25th anniversary. And for any of those of you who are questioning why the hell we're discussing this movie, it's because of you. We had a fan vote, I think, spring of 2025, between two movies. 2001's A Knight's Tale with Heath Ledger and Paul Bettany, and we had M, the noir classic from Fritz Lang from 1931, possibly the beginning of film noir, with Peter Lorre. And you could have heard Dana's Peter Lorre impression, but they tied, and we had a tiebreaker, and this is how it ended. So, we get to discuss a guilty pleasure movie of mine, but before we do, this movie was written and directed by Brian Helgeland, cinematography by Richard Greatrex, music by Carter Burwell, editing by Kevin Stitt, starring Heath Ledger as William Thatcher / Ulrich von Liechtenstein, Mark Addy as Roland, Rufus Sewell as Count Adhemar of Anjou, Paul Bettany as Geoffrey Chaucer, Shannon Sossamon as Jocelyn, Alan Tudyk as Watt, Laura Fraser as Kate, Christopher Casanova as John Thatcher, Berenice Bejo as Christiana, and James Purefoy as Thomas Colville or Edward the Black Prince. Background for the movie: based on A Knight's Tale by Geoffrey Chaucer. A Knight's Tale was released on May 11th, 2001. On a budget of $65 million, the film would gross $117 million worldwide to finish number 19 at the worldwide box office for 2001. The film was critically panned by most critics at the time and was only nominated for MTV Movie Awards in 2002. A Knight's Tale currently holds a 59% among critics on Rotten Tomatoes, a 56 score on Metacritic, and a 3.6 out of 5 on Letterboxd. Now, I obviously have seen this movie before. I have seen this movie probably 20-some times at this point. I see it every probably couple of months because it's a guilty pleasure movie of mine. You said you had never seen the movie.
Correct.
Not even pieces?
No.
Okay, so initial thoughts.
It's fun.
Yeah.
It's predictable.
Well,
I knew how it was going to end and what the plot points were going to be about 35-40 minutes into the film.
Yeah, the hero is going to get into a situation where he has a fall. It is going to be the reveal that he is not nobility. He's somehow going to get out of that through some extraordinary means, and then he's going to beat the villain in the end.
Yeah, the minute he identified Prince Edward, that was going to be what was going to happen.
Yeah. So, did you like it?
Yes, I enjoyed it. I had fun.
This is not like some profound movie by any means. I know that. It's not hard to see that. The point of it is that I enjoy watching it, and that's why I watch it as often as I do, because it's an easy comfort film. And I like most of the people that are in this movie, and they feel like a nice, tight-knit group that supports each other. I don't know. What's wrong with that?
Nothing.
Now, part of the reason that this was critically panned in the moment is the use of modern tropes and modern music in the film, particularly like 70s rock themes. So you had, why am I drawing
We Will Rock You?
Well, yeah, you had Queen in there, but you also had, there's a big dance number with David Bowie. And I don't know, the first time I saw it, I'm like, okay, this is kind of odd. And I'll have some more comments when we get to the Did You Know, but how did that strike you? Was it just too off-putting, or where you're like, all right, this is kind of goofy anyway. Let's just go with it.
Well, it was initially off-putting, and then the movie itself was like, this is not taking itself too seriously anyway, so what difference does it make? So about the third time I heard a modern rock song, I'm like, whatever.
Now, do you have a guess as to what my introduction to this movie was? Because it's weirder than you think.
Summer rental while you were staying at your grandparents.
No, that actually would have been more wholesome than what it actually ended up being. In 7th grade, during confirmation classes, for some reason, I had to go over to the parsonage next door. And Matt Dobler's wife had this on at the exact moment that they have Paul Bettany bare-assed. Early on in the film. So,
right.
Yeah, the pastor's wife.
Chris Dobler, yeah. Okay.
I'm like, what? What is going on? When you've been sheltered that long in parochial school. But then again, Jim Dolmeyer showing us Stacy's mom and the country music video for Hell Yeah as part of religion classes. Yeah, okay. All right. Anyway, moving on. I guess the biggest takeaway I have from this is that Heath Ledger basically becomes a star from this movie, or at least like star making or star adjacent. His transcendence from 10 Things I Hate About You to getting The Patriot with Mel Gibson a couple of years later, from that directly, he gets into this film. And as a result, he has this upward trajectory until we get to Brokeback Mountain. And eventually, before his unfortunate early demise, he takes on the Joker and wins his Oscar posthumously. So part of the story of Heath Ledger and of this movie becomes the fact that what could have been. Based on now you've seen this movie, I think you've seen pieces of Brokeback, maybe. I think you and I watched The Patriot. I don't know if you remember it at all.
I do not remember him being in it, but it's been a long time since I saw The Patriot.
Yeah, it's probably been 20 years since I've seen that either. He's great in 10 Things I Hate About You, which maybe that's another film we'll eventually get to at a different time. And you've obviously seen The Dark Knight. What kind of star do you think he could have been had he lived on?
It's really hard to say. He obviously had issues with sleep. He had issues with pain. Who knows? If it wasn't this, it could have potentially been some other path where he ends up on more illicit stuff and ends up as Philip Seymour Hoffman later on. So who knows? Obviously, he had some issues that he had to deal with. I could see him being the type that would have crashed, come back, type of deal, where he had a resurrection in his career, maybe a la Robert Downey Jr.
Ben Affleck?
Yeah. Although Ben Affleck has a tendency to crash, come up, crash, come up, crash.
He just repeats the cycle over and over again.
Kind of like hooking up with high-end celebrity wives or girlfriends.
Yeah. I don't know. I think based on the strength and the few things that I've seen him in, he's extraordinarily affable. And his ability to just be at the center of things, I think, is unusual. He's just overly charismatic, and we just don't have a ton of those people. And for an era where we haven't had a lot of true stars, guys that are on the poster that make a movie, I think he could have been one.
Well, when you consider who probably is the most bankable star under 45 right now.
Well, it's Chalamet. It's hands down Chalamet.
Okay, and after him?
Under 40?
Under 45. Glenn Powell, no matter how many times they keep putting him up as being, he lacks the oomph. He just kind of...
Yeah, because I'm trying to think. Channing Tatum, maybe?
Maybe.
I mean, I see every couple of days something swirling around Jacob Elordi now. And now that he, again, is rumored as Bond, like, okay, but he's not an American either. I don't know. Well, Heath Ledger's obviously not an American, so I guess it's not even an apt comparison. But yeah, the two most bankable stars in the world at this point yet are DiCaprio and, by extension, then Chalamet, who, I mean, modeled himself after DiCaprio. I don't know if there are any females that you can put on the poster and they automatically sell something. Because even like Zendaya, for example, who's the pop star and has all of this other traction. So you seemingly have a name in mind. Who do you have?
Very few. Margot Robbie has proven that she by herself can't do it.
Yeah, well...
ScarJo? If
but she's not under 40.
No,
she's not under 40.
How old is she now? 40?
I think she's early 40s.
Well, I was going 45 because that's kind of the cutoff.
Well, you said under 40.
No, I said 45 to begin with, and the reason I said that is because that's middle age. That's by definition middle age now.
I mean, it's not, because people aren't living to be 90 years old. The average life expectancy is actually fallen. But, well, okay, some people are living to be 90 years old, but I'm saying the life expectancy is still not quite there. But anyway, she's 41. And she's been around for a long time, but even her, you're not... The reason to go see ScarJo is because she's in some type of franchise film, not because she's on the poster.
Yeah.
Like Black Widow didn't do that well. So, yeah, I don't know who from a female perspective would be somebody that you automatically show up for because they're starring in a movie. And that's what I'm saying is in an era where we just don't have movie stars anymore. Who is it that you're going for properties or you're going for directors? And the cinephiles are usually going for directors. The casual fan is showing up for IP or for franchise or whatever, And
it's that way all around. Because who got nominated for Tonys?
I don't know. Honestly, I didn't look.
I mean, I think John Lithgow was about the youngest.
Well, okay. Fine. But this is not a Tony's show. We're not discussing
I understand.
Broadway
I'm just
theater.
saying, because it all draws off each other, because there's a real problem. And I think in large part it's because this country has cut back so substantially on the money it spends on the arts. We don't try to encourage kids to go into acting and the performing arts anymore.
No.
That's one of the reasons why all of our actors are coming out of Great Britain and Australia, because they provide money for these things.
Well, that's part of it, but also half the country thinks of all of these people as other. Like they're too hippy-dippy and liberal and tree hugger and commies and insert
take
left-leaning
your fucking red hat off and get into the real world.
Not that I'm against having that conversation here, but it seems counterproductive since we're all in agreement anyway. We'd just be ranting for the sake of it. All right, so let's move into the movie itself. Do you have our plot summary ready for us?
I do. A Knight's Tale follows a poor squire who risks everything to change his fate. After his master dies, William Thatcher, Heath Ledger, pretends to be a noble knight and enters high-stakes jousting tournaments. With help from his loyal friends, he trains, competes, and rises in status, even catching the attention of a noblewoman, Jocelyn, Shannon Sossamon. But his secret threatens to ruin everything as rivals grow suspicious.
Thank you, Dad. All right, so what is the movie about?
Well,
I don't know if it's a deep movie, so...
Yeah, I know. Overcoming your adverse or your poor surroundings or your poor circumstances.
Well, a privilege it is to live in a world where social mobility is possible, I think is one. if you kind of believe in the tenets of democracy and a non-caste-like system, if you throw those things off. But I did hear one critic describe it. I'm just going to borrow this. Rocky on a horse.
Yeah. Yeah, I could agree with that. But again, it's an issue of the sacrifice of a father. I'm the rise from the poor surroundings to do well, okay? But I'll admit, I had a hell of a lot of breaks and a lot of advantages. It doesn't happen like this very often. So it's kind of a fairy tale.
Yeah, well, it's supposed to be.
I know. At one time, it was possible, but I don't think that's existed since Ronald Reagan took office.
I think the last true era, or the last time that the American middle class was still like growing, or that they had the possibility of being better off than their parents, was like 1972. Something like that.
Yeah, that's about right, probably.
So basically your generation ruined it.
Those who voted for Reagan.
I wasn't one of them.
I was too young.
The second time you weren't.
True.
But then again, your dad also became a Mondalian.
He was for John Anderson, 1980. I saw the sign in the yard and I went like, what the hell? This is the guy who used to rant and rave about how great Barry Goldwater was.
I was going to say, that's like you putting out a Nick Fuentes sign in the front yard. All right. Yeah. Anyway, did you know? When Chaucer first introduces Sir Ulrich in his speech, the crowd doesn't react at first because the Czech extras didn't understand it. Mark Addy's loud prompt tipped them off to start cheering. The awkward moment was left in because it made the scene funnier. Happy accidents.
Yeah.
Did you know? Plenty of effort was expended creating lances that would splinter convincingly without taking out the stunt riders as well. The body of each lance was scored so that it would break easily, and the tips were made of balsa wood. Each was also hollowed out and the whole filled with balsa chips and uncooked linguine to make the convincing splinters.
Okay. New use of for pasta.
That's playing with your food. Did you know? Director Brian Helgeland once said in an interview that he used modern music in the movie to show modern audiences what people then felt about their music. When true Renaissance music is used in modern movies, it fails to convey the emotional response that people back then had to such music. It's one take on it. Again, I think it's dismissible by some, but for us, the movie's silly, so like, don't take it too seriously and just enjoy the ride. I don't know. Did you know? Some of the extras were homeless people from Prague.
Oh, I could go so many ways with that one.
Did you know? Heath Ledger was cast on the strength of his performance in the rushes that Brian Helgeland had seen of him in The Patriot, which was filming at the time. So, like I mentioned before, one movie usually begets another, especially for a young actor.
Yes. Did
you know? For the scene when William follows Jocelyn into the cathedral, the sounds of the horse's hooves were produced using coconuts on Charles Mains's garage floor. I only put that one in there because I thought, especially since you had mentioned coconut shells and sound capabilities last week, you know, I'll throw that one out for you. So,
thanks.
You're welcome. And finally, did you know? Heath Ledger knocked out one of director Brian Helgeland's front teeth with a broomstick when the two were demonstrating a jousting move. It was several months before Helgeland's mouth had healed enough to repair the damage. He said it was the only jousting injury during the film. But anyway, that looks like a good spot for our first break. We'll be right back. Before we jump back into the episode, next week for our 312th episode, we are set to discuss The Killing from 1956, celebrating its 70th anniversary, written and directed by Stanley Kubrick, cinematography by Lucien Ballard, music by Gerald Freed, editing by Betty Steinberg, starring Sterling Hayden, Colleen Gray, Vince Edwards, and J.C. Flippin. You won't want to miss that one, so watch ahead of the show by searching the Real Good app to find where it's streaming for you. That's REELGOOD. All right, no guest on tonight that we have to lead into, so we can just start right where we left off at best performances. Who did you have down?
Heath Ledger.
As did I. He's the obvious choice here. I think most of the film is basically made on his back. His affability, his ability to play the various different emotions and such. It's hard to deny Ledger's quality overall in this film. Again, he's carrying the emotional center through most of it, and you have to really like him in order to appreciate this movie.
Correct. And he does have kind of a innocence.
Mm-hmm. Well, the dreamer-like quality, the person that you believe is like a big dreamer.
Yes.
All right, so since we both had him as best performance, this is where we might separate. Best secondary performance, who do you have?
Alan Tudyk.
Interesting, okay.
I thought he was by far the funniest of the sub-characters. He can do more with his facial expressions comedically than I think almost any actor other than somebody like Jim Carrey or Robin Williams could.
That's interesting. I don't know if I would necessarily put him in that class, but he is the most comedically savvy of any of these. And I think it's the reason, other than Ledger, who obviously went on to some bigger things before he passed away, the only other primary person that's really gone on to anything is Rufus Sewell. And he kind of had this period where he was just gone. He was around in a couple of things in the early 2000s, and then he'd been gone for like 15 years, and he all of a sudden just pops back up again in the last 5. And now he's on a semi-popular show on Netflix called The Diplomat. Okay. But, you know, I forgot Paul Bettany. Yeah, you're correct. Yeah, Paul Bettany's at least been around and doing things. And, of course, he scored with his choice of marriage partner.
Oh, yeah.
But needless to say, Alan Tudyk is somebody I really enjoy and appreciate, and I like the fact that he's in this movie. But there are roles of his that I just like a little bit better. He feels like oftentimes the comic foil when things break down and they need somebody to say something awkward or nonsensical or
yeah,
you know, and so he just kind of finishes things off because they wrote themselves into a corner. But I had my best secondary performance as Rufus Sewell. I think he creates a fairly unlikable villain. And to a degree, he's very charismatic because every time he's on screen, you're like, I kind of hate this guy. He's a total prick. And by extension, therefore, it's like a really easy script to kind of like, okay, we have our Black Knight. We have our kind of Sterling Silver Knight. We know exactly who these guys are. We know how this is going to end. And so it's an easily enjoyable movie because you really don't have to think that hard.
The question I had that I noticed, when he was in close-ups, his eyes were hazel and almost a bright hazel. And then for others, his eyes were more green or brown. It's like his eye color kept changing depending on the lighting and the proximity of the camera, which I thought was odd. But I just noticed it.
Well, I mean, supposedly my eyes do the same thing. I don't know. You've told me that before, so I don't know. Then again, I don't really notice eye color all that much. All right, then my most charismatic was Paul Bettany. I think he's a really good addition into the middle of the movie. He creates a fairly interesting character that, despite the name recognition, like, I think anybody who has a certain level of education might recognize the name Chaucer. It doesn't feel stocky or that it has to adhere to like certain procedure to get the character right. Like, they're not dropping little clues or Easter eggs about this guy. He's just the guy in the story and he's a writer. and then he's just part of the gang. So despite the name recognition, I always felt like he was a good addition. And then he feels like he has, I don't know, there's an ineffable responsibility quality to him. Like he feels like he's a little bit more mature than the other guys, even though obviously he has the lowest or the easiest vice or problem of any of them by his gambling. So I don't know. He's an interesting character. So who did you have?
I have Laura Fraser. Actually, I thought she was the more attractive of the two lead women, or the two female characters in the film. And I don't know. I liked her character. I thought she was much more relatable. Just me. I thought she had a great presence on screen.
Honestly, there isn't a bad character in the movie for me. Like, not really. I mean, there are some easy stock characters that are just kind of like overly written, such as like the Frenchman in the bar. Feel very, very much like they're playing Monty Python characters on the top of the wall in Holy Grail. But other than that, like, everybody in this, I kind of have an appreciation for. They all play their roles fairly aptly. So, you know, you can't exactly go wrong. I'm just a little surprised. It's not the role that everybody picks out from this movie, to be honest.
I tried to go off the beaten path on this one.
And certainly you did. All right, so then let's move to best scene here. I have 5 that I nominated. First, Adamar Joust. Then I have Dance with Gelderland, or Dance of Gelderland. Excuse me. I have Cheapside, which is when Will goes home, essentially, and finds his dad. I have Edward Knights William, and I have the final joust. Did you have any other scenes you would like to add here?
I do not.
Okay. I think this covered most of the big points. I mean, there's some stuff in between, but you know, it covers or hits most of the important points. So out of these, what do you think is the best scene?
I have Cheapside.
As do I. I think if you're going to choose anything with an emotional core to it, when he reunites with his dad, I find that to be somewhat moving, even no matter how many times I've seen this film.
It's the payoff. I mean, you sacrifice a lot to put your child or your son into a position to succeed, and then understanding that it paid off is gratifying.
So have you ever had that moment?
Maybe.
Yeah, of course you can't give me that satisfaction.
Not yet.
Okay. And ultimately, I have that as my favorite scene as well. I think it has such a good heart to it in the middle of the movie. Again, it could have been some throwaway, and we didn't need this for it to be an entertaining and moving movie, but by bringing that back around and making it part of the ultimate reason the rising and falling action in the third act of the movie is what I think moves this past being somewhat forgettable and being an entertaining film that I go back to. Was that your favorite as well?
It was. So, sorry.
Oh, it's okay. All right, and most indelible moment, I have the final joust. I mean...
Yeah, same with me.
What sports movie isn't defined by its final moments?
Well, of course. And, of course, completely setting yourself to being the utmost vulnerable, and you succeed despite your vulnerability.
Yeah, absolutely. So that looks like a good spot for our second break. We will be right back. Before we jump back into the episode, and before we get to the Stanley Rubric in a minute, if you're ever curious about our Master Greatest Movies of All Time list that has every graded movie we've ever discussed on the show, there's a link in the episode description of every episode of this show, or you can go to RonnieDuncanStudios.com and find it as the top entry on the Greatest Movie of All Time podcast show page. That is the grades we've done so far for all 280 movies we've graded, and we continue to add more each week. Make sure to check that out as we go and follow along. Dad, do we have anyone to remember this week?
Yes. David Kendall, 68. American television writer and producer. Boy Meets World, Growing Pains, and film director, Dirty Deeds. Gwen Farrell, 94, American actress. MASH, she was also a boxing referee. Gary Linden, 61, Irish actor. Banshees of Inisherin, The Clinic, Warhorse. David Allan Coe, 86, American country singer. You Never Even Call Me By My Name, The Ride, and songwriter. Take This Job and Shove It. That was Johnny Paycheck. Steve Maslow, 81, American sound engineer. The Empire Strikes Back, Raiders of the Lost Ark, Speed. Oscar winner, 1981, 82, and 1995. Dion Anderson, 87, American actor. The Shawshank Redemption, Days of Our Lives, Townies. And Ted Turner, president of Turner Broadcasting, creator of CNN, TNT, TBS, and a whole host of other cable networks. Innovator in television history.
And how old was he?
That I do not... 87. Excuse me. Yes.
So, turning first to David Kendall, I grew up in an era where I was not catching them in like their first run or their prime years, but when I watched the Disney Channel, it was like reruns from ABC. So I grew up with Growing Pains and Boy Meets World and Brotherly Love and Smart Guy and all of these shows. So a thank you to him for some shows that I had a lot of fondness for when I was growing up that you turned on immediately after school. That was my version of what was a thing, I guess. I don't know. As far as Gary Leiden, I don't recall him in these movies, but we both saw Banshees of Inisherin when we were, or in theaters a couple of years ago, and I was not as big of a proponent of it as I think you were, but at least a decent movie. Warhorse, a decent Steven Spielberg movie, nominated for Best Picture. Nothing to sneeze at. But I'll also mention Steve Maslow, 3-time Oscar winner for 3 movies we mentioned: Empire, Raiders, and Speed. It doesn't probably get too much better in action and sound than those 3 movies. So, a true pioneer in sound engineering, a true loss, and his legacy carries on with him because those movies will be watched for a very long time yet. Finally, Ted Turner. I mean, we'll probably talk about it mutually, but the amount of things that he was directly responsible for in the industry. I mean, you could say to a degree that he is directly responsible for The Shawshank Redemption being what it is now by the fact that he had TNT and he needed content and product and he put that all together. But the amount of people in our circle that love TCM, and by extension, you know, it's Turner classic movies. So a true loss to anybody who kind of grew up in the last, or at least was culturally conscious in the last 30 years, 40 years.
Gwen Farrell, if you were not familiar, and those of us who are MASH fans who grew up watching MASH or reruns of MASH, she played multiple nursing characters on the show, but her primary one was Gwen Baker, who was the African-American nurse on the show. So that was her. That was her big moment in Hollywood. She did other things afterwards as well. When I was a kid, 1977, 78, somewhere in there, David Allan Coe wrote sang this song, You Never Even Call Me By My Name. And the part of it was there's a break in it, and it says, well, I thought I had written the greatest country and western song ever, and my friend J.D. Souther said, no, you forgot to mention prison, trains, mama, getting drunk, trucks. And so I wrote this song. I got drunk the day my mama got out of prison, and I went to pick her up in the rain. But before I got to the station in my pickup truck, she got run over by a damned old train. And then you go with the chorus, and you never even called me by my... Yeah. Anyway, I just remember that. I didn't even have to look it up. I just remembered that verse verbatim. And it's been, I don't know, what, 49 years, 48 years?
It helps that you've been repeating that verbatim to me on regular intervals for as long as I've been alive.
I suppose. I just remember that.
Since all memories are memories of other memories.
Yes. And Ted Turner, I mean, what can you say? He created the 24-hour news cycle. No one thought CNN would ever survive. Who's going to watch a show or a network that's just news and runs 24 hours a day? There's only so many things that news can do that's interesting. Yeah,
well, that's true. It is true. And when you have big events, it's great to have 24-hour news. But when it's not, and they have to fill programming, ugh.
Yeah. But for insomniacs...
well, or people that watch news as entertainment.
Yeah.
That's been the biggest difference in the modern era.
Yeah.
Either way, we respect and admire all of these fondly for their contributions to the arts with a moment of silence in their honor. Thank you. All right, let's move to best funniest lines. I will start with Prince Edward. What a pair we make, huh? Both trying to hide who we are, both unable to do so. Your men love you. If I knew nothing else about you, that would be enough. But you also tilt when you should withdraw. And that is knightly, too.
What? In a letter. I miss you like the sun misses the flower in the depths of winter. Instead of beauty to direct its light to the heart, hardens like the frozen world, your absence has banished me too.
Chaucer. For you are all equally blessed, for I have the pride, the privilege, nay, the pleasure of introducing you to a knight, sired by knights, a knight who can trace his lineage back beyond Charlemagne. I first met him atop a mountain near Jerusalem, praying to God, asking his forgiveness from the Saracen blood spilt by his sword. Next, he amazed me still further in Italy when he saved a fatherless beauty from the would-be ravishing of her dreadful Turkish uncle. Crowd boos. In Greece, he spent a year in silence, just to better understand the sound of a whisper. And so without further gilding the lily, and with no more ado, I give to you the seeker of serenity, the protector of Italian virginity, the enforcer of our Lord God, the one, the only, Sir Ulrich von Liechtenstein.
The protector of Italian virginity? Wow. I think he failed.
Well, he never met Federico Fellini. Anyway, okay, moving on.
Chaucer. I will eviscerate you in fiction. Every pimple, every character flaw. I was naked for a day. You will be naked for eternity.
Adamar. You have been weighed, you have been measured, and you have been found wanting. In what world could you possibly beat me?
What? You betrayed us, and I will thong you until your insides are out. Your outsides are in. Your entrails will become your extrails, and I will... all the... pain, lots of pain.
What? What do you mean dead? Roland. The spark of his life is smothered in shite. His spirit is gone, but his stench remains. Does that answer your question?
John Thatcher. Change your stars and live a better life than I have.
Young Thatcher. Can it be done, father? Can a man change his stars? Yes, William, if he believes enough, a man can do anything.
And spoken like a married man, Chaucer. There she is, William, the embodiment of your love, your Venus, William, and how I hate her.
William. Father, I am afraid I won't know the way back home. John Thatcher. Don't be foolish, William. You just follow your feet.
Chaucer. It's a small target, Will, but aim for his heart.
Well, you took the last one I had, so do you have any left?
Nope, I'm done.
So then let's move to the Stanley Rubric. Legacy is up first. This is a measure of the legacy of the film approximately 5 years after it came out. So 2006 to today, what is the legacy of this film as shared between two equal yet separate groups, the industry and the audience, for a total of 10, 5 and 5 points apiece. Would you like to start or go second?
Go ahead.
All right. I don't think this has a ton of industry legacy. It's not a film that has ever really been considered for like some type of franchise development or a sequel. There's never really been any rumors. It's not on anybody's lists of anything. And the only reason I'm not giving this like a 1 is Heath Ledger and Alan Tudyk. Mm-hmm. Because outside of that, I mean, you could convince me of a 1.5 to be honest, but I'm going to be a little bit kinder and say a 2 on the industry. As far as audience share on this one, our now world famous Office poll had 3 meekly raised hands. And I think if I would have given them a little bit more information, other people might have joined in, because I don't think this is like completely out of the realm of possibility, but nobody really followed it or likes it in the way that I do, where I think it may have more of a cult following than it does necessarily like a more general audience following. And so because of that, and I guess this is smaller than even I had necessarily considered, I thought it would be a little bit more popular. I'm going to give this a 2, where I don't think every cinephile has seen this film, because it's not one of those that's like a staple movie. It's not an important movie by any means. It's like if you grew up in this era of film and you enjoyed movies like this, these kind of offbeat, irreverent comedies with big stars, you probably have seen it, but outside of that, not really. So I'm at a 2 and a 2 for a 4.
I'm almost at your point. I agree with your 2 for the public. I can't do much more than that. For the industry, I did go slightly higher at 2.5, and it's predominantly because of Heath Ledger and Alan Tudyk. When you consider that, first of all, Heath Ledger is still fairly well known, despite the fact that he's been dead for
almost 20 years.
Yeah, is a
like
big
January
deal.
Of 2008.
But Tudyk has had, even though he's not as well known,
he's not a name.
No, he's done a ton of stuff. Yeah, and he's done a lot of voice acting. He's huge in all of the Pixar movies and all of those.
Yes.
And so I think it kind of did launch his career that way. So, but that's the reason why I only could go 2.5. So that's where I am. So I'm 4.5 overall.
So that's a 4.25 average between the two of us. Let's move to impact and significance. This is much like the last category, a measure between two equal yet separate groups, the industry and the audience. However, this is the impact and significance among the first 5 years after the film's release, so 2001 to 2006. What is the impact and significance between these two groups? 5 and 5 points apiece for a total of 10. Since I led off the last category, would you like to lead here?
Industry, impact and significance. I'm going to equal out at the 2.5 for the same reasons I gave it for the legacy, because it did start within the 5 years. For the public, it made back its money plus a bit of a profit. It wasn't highly regarded. It wasn't like people raved about it. It's not well received outside of that. So I'm going to go with the same 2 I had for 4.5.
I have this at a 3 and a 3. I think that if you're going to talk the impact of the movie and you're going to talk about Heath Ledger's star power rising, it's because of this movie. At least initially, like, yes, people had seen some of his other stuff, but he hadn't been the lead quite yet. And so because of that, now we get him into this trajectory that starts and kind of ends a couple of years later between Brokeback and then The Dark Knight, of course. And so because of that, I'm going to give that a 3. On the audience side of things, it almost doubled its budget. It was somewhat popularly known, even if it was critically panned. So 19th feels in a particular year in the 90s and 2000s when there were just so many movie choices. I mean, it was number 2 at the box office when it was initially released, and I have to imagine that it did something in rentals. I don't think it was a small movie by any stakes, but I'm going to give that a 3 as well, so I have a 6. Is that a 5.25 average between the two of us? Yeah, that's right. Then let's move to Novelty. This is a measure of anything original about the movie, or novel, if you will, and the execution on that novel nature. So 5 and 5 points apiece between originality and execution for a total of 10. Since you went on the last category, I'll start here. Again, it's not the most original thing in the world, so I can't give it like high points by any measure. I think it is very sports movie. It's predictable. It's kind of in the middle. So I'm not really going to fault you for having this on the lower end, but I'm going to give it a 3 because as sports movies go, all of them basically start with modern sports. So this is kind of in its own category within a small subcategory to begin with of sports movies. This is the only medieval kind of sports-like movie. And so by that token, I give it a 3. Execution, for what it's going for, and again, it's not a serious movie. It's poking fun at itself in many different regards. But I think everybody's likable, affable. It's fairly shot well. Like, I don't have any problems with any of the like graphics or anything else. It's a small budget movie, but it acts as a much bigger budget movie. And all the characters and the actors seem like they're having a good time and they enjoyed making the movie. I don't know. I gave it a 4. So I have a 7.
I am much lower.
Okay.
Originality, I have 1.5. It's not original. I mean, I tried to be fair, but other than the fact that they put it on horseback in the 13th or the 15th century, okay. Execution, I do think it was a little better. So I'm at a 3.5. So I'm at a 6. Or no, hold it. 3.5. Forgot to add them up. 3.5, 4, 5. Yeah. That's why I went into law. Yes. Yes.
Okay. So that's a 6 average between the two of us.
Yes.
So we move to classicness. This is a measure of how well or not the film is aged. Is there anything to take points off of? Anything that detracts from it that's problematic about the movie? Or I guess anything having to do with the movie? It's a category that lives in complete nuance and in the gray. And so we turn to our senior nuance correspondent, Dana.
There is no nuance. It's a 6.
You added it a 6. I thought about just leading off this category and saying it's the definition of a 6. There's nothing to add up. There's nothing to take off. It's like the middle.
Yeah. You could put this as the token definition in the dictionary.
So honestly, now the midpoint line is always the Knight's Tale line.
It's our version of the Mendoza line.
Sure. Moving to rewatchability, because that's a 6 average. Insert your own subjective test if you wish. I have tended to go in more of an objective or attempting to be objective line as to how this is perceived by the public at large about this category instead of my own subjective taste. If it were my own rewatchability score, this would be much higher, but I think there are people that don't like sports films, that don't appreciate the kind of like predictability and whatever else that this has. And so because of that, I have to knock it down a few points, but it's a generally enjoyable film with some fairly likable people in it. I don't think that there's anything truly problematic other than maybe the random male nudity early in the film. But, you know, other than that, I think this is fairly watchable. And so by that extension, I'm going to give it a 6.5.
I'm at 6.5 as well. So, yeah,
okay.
I'd watch it again. It'll be on. I would watch it again. And quite frankly, having seen Paul Bettany, I understand why he was the albino in
the Da Vinci Code.
The Da Vinci Code. Boy, his ass was white. It was almost like blinding.
Oh, okay. Then we turn to audience score. For audience score on this one, we had an 82% for Google users and a 79% for Rotten Tomato users, giving us an 8.05. So to repeat the categories, for Legacy, we had a 4.25. For Impact and Significance, we had a 5.25. For Novelty, we had a 6. Classicness, a 6. Rewatchability, a 6.5. And audience score, an 8.05, giving us a final total of 36.05, and currently placing it on our list between The Public Enemy and A Bridge Too Far at number 266 of 281 films.
Wow.
You're welcome, America. We did the dirty work so you didn't have to.
Mm-hmm. This is what you picked.
That is correct. So, with that in mind, I have some remaining questions for this film, although I guess before we get to that, if anybody has any thoughts, issues, concerns, complaints, you can write us at greatestalltimemoviepodcast@gmail.com. You can find us on any of our socials at gmotepodcast, or you can find us on our website, ronnieduncanstudios.com/gmotepodcast. But as for the remaining questions, and only because I am a fan of this movie, and I've seen it way too many times, and so I think I have like 8 or 9 different questions here. How would you know simply from observation that Ulrich was not of nobility? All we see and get told is that Adamar sees him on the roof, and then he spots him with his father. Okay, he could just be slumming it. How does he know he's his father? Were there records to prove that?
His name does not appear in any of the records that were presented to him in France while they were in battle. If you remember the scene where the family name with the crest was on all these papers, and they're given to him, and he's going through them page by page, and then he slams them down and looks into the sky and...
Yeah.
That
what about
kind
it?
of indicated to me that he understood that he is not finding this guy. So there's a question as to whether or not he actually is a
You're reading that scene wrong. That whole scene is about him getting reports of who won all the jousting tournaments. And it's Ulrich, and he's getting pissed off because his rival is winning and he's not there.
Well, all right. I misinterpreted that. I had just the opposite.
That's all right. Question number 2. Wouldn't you be disqualified for cheating if you tipped your lance?
Are you going to report him?
Well, I mean, knights and nobility, and I don't know how the rules were necessarily apportioned. There don't seem to be referees in this whole thing, but the prince, who is your commander of the free companies and is clearly like bossing you around, just knighted the guy. Like, you don't think he has some level of fondness for him? I don't know.
Yeah.
If you said, hey, dude, this is tipped. Everybody can see it. This guy is a cheater. That he's not going to, like, put him in the stocks?
Yeah. How many times do you find somebody who points out cheating who succeeds? We won't mention Barack Obama.
Huh?
Obama got his seat in the Senate because he pointed out that his opponent, the Republican candidate who was leading at the time, had violated a bunch of election laws and had to withdraw. So there was no candidate running against him. And so he just waltzed into the Senate seat.
The state Senate seat?
U.S. Senate.
Oh. Well, I mean, it's from Illinois anyway. Were they really going to elect a Republican?
They did occasionally.
Not in the mid-2000s. Even if he ran against somebody, I feel in 2006 in a very overwhelming cycle for Democrats that he wouldn't have been losing that one. But, okay.
Maybe not, but still.
I was also thinking of the Astros and the trash can banging and all of it. Like,
yes, Mike Fiers, former brewer, who did all the reporting on it.
Yeah. Question 3. If Ulrich keeps knocking knights off of their horses, and the rules clearly state that he wins other horses as a result, where are all of his other horses? We only see one.
He sold everything. All his trophies were broken up and sold off for silver pieces. You sell the damn horses. How many horses? It costs money to feed horses and haul them around and have people taken care of. You sell them.
All right, fair enough. Okay, that makes sense. I can buy that one. All right, question 4. How does Ulrich win a tournament that he only draws against Sir Thomas Colville after 1 lance when we know it's 3 lances, if everyone else is seemingly going to withdraw because they know it's Edward the Black Prince? Wouldn't you have tied for the tournament? I know. I always get these movies where they are disobeying their own rules. Question 5. If Roland is there when William becomes a squire 12 years ago, but he's been back to England 5 years ago, and William hasn't in that entire span, how did that happen if they are still the squires for the same master?
He didn't squire up that particular week.
Okay. I don't know. Doesn't make sense to me. It feels like 2 people wrote different scripts and then like subbed them together somehow. But all right. Question 6, I think this is. If Edward was going to release William, why wait around until he's in the stocks to release and knight him then?
To see how well his band of men stand up for him. That will describe his true character.
Okay. I don't know. It felt like it was unnecessary, but all right. Maybe a more dramatic knighting. Yeah. All right. Question 7. If William starts late behind Adhemar for the absolute final run or final lance, how does he get enough momentum to knock him off his horse?
Maybe that's the key. And I don't know enough about physics, but the fact that there isn't enough momentum allows the momentum to play against him by just traveling at a lower speed and squaring up the lance.
That's an interesting thought. So if there's anybody that is listening to this that is a physics major or something that can provide some feedback on this, if you want to email in greatestaltimemoviepodcast@gmail.com or on any of our socials at gmotepodcast, please. I'd be curious about that one. Finally,
this will be a great clip, by the way, for social media, because I'm sure there will be somebody there that will have an answer, even if they have to make up a fucking answer.
Like somebody else on this program.
What you're talking about?
Yeah. Okay. Remaining questions. Number 8. If William's shoulder is so weak, how does he jump the fence with ease at the end?
Same reason he's able to grab everybody, grab his girl and hug her and, please. It's Hollywood. They don't think about these things. The shoulder only hurts when it matters and doesn't hurt when it is necessary to not matter.
I understand. I'm assuming you have no remaining questions.
No, I think if I had, you exhausted them.
Fair enough. All right. Remaining thoughts for the week.
I don't have any remaining thoughts. As I indicated or teased in our last episode, I do have an announcement to make.
You do?
And I will announce that due to just kind of backlog at the office and our pending vacations, my individual show will start June 8th. Monday at 11 o'clock live. We will upload it, and there will be recordings
AM or
on
PM?
AM.
AM. All right, 11 AM, June 8th, Central Standard Time. So if you're in any of the other time zones.
Yep.
All right,
so
continue.
And it'll be a wide-ranging list of different things, and I may consider bringing on guests to talk occasionally on different subjects. Everything ranging from my opinion on certain aspects of law, cases that are pending, decisions of the Supreme Court, history of my legal career, just general. If anybody had any interest in the segment we did a while ago called Ask Dana Anything, it's just basically the same thing, only for 30 minutes and me getting to pick the subjects.
Fair enough. You and I also both saw the same movie over the weekend. Newer film, The Devil Wears Prada 2. For a legacy sequel, I thought it was a little bit clunky in spots. I think the way that it's set up, it fit from a storytelling perspective, but it felt a little too neat at times. It felt a little contrived at others, but it's hard not to do that with a legacy sequel. And overall, if you're just judging it on the curve that is a sequel and a legacy sequel, I think it probably gets like fairly good marks. It's not Top Gun Maverick level legacy sequel, but it's pretty up there. It's probably in that second tier.
Well, and shout out to our friend Adam Freed at Movie Archer. He wrote a piece that was released today. I haven't had a chance to do anything more than the first couple paragraphs because I caught it in between appointments today. I hope to get a chance to sit and read it in more detail tonight before bed. But he indicated that he thought that the sequel, the script was one of the better sequels that he had seen, simply because it did a pretty good job of showing the development of the characters over the 20 years and really did not have a lot of plot points that kind of detracted or made the previous film look bad.
No.
I think it did a good job following the trajectory.
I think it aged the characters gracefully and gave them some flaws and some characteristics, but didn't change the heart of really any of the characters. It did give a little bit of a softer spot to Meryl Streep's character, but otherwise, I think it was a fairly well done movie. That being said, Justin Theroux's character, for the life of me, I couldn't tell. I'm like, I know who that actor is. I know who it is, and I could not figure it out. And then I went in the credits, and it's Justin Theroux. I'm like, fuck, yes, I knew exactly who that was.
Yeah.
I kept wanting to say it was the other Duplass brother, and I can't think of what his name is right now, but I knew it wasn't. But yeah, it's always welcome to see Justin Theroux. I do enjoy him very much.
I will say that I don't know, it's a little bit of a Easter egg, but so many of the lines or things had throwaway lines that really reflected something of the actor doing the presentation, where Meryl Streep says, I really love to work. You can just tell that that's Meryl Streep's mantra at age 76, that she continues doing this stuff because she really likes to work.
Yeah.
From everything I've read about how Stanley Tucci is, he's the type of guy that's constantly doing just that, throwing little bones in to help people out here or there, or doing the little things that people, it's not like it just happened. I did something, or I threw something in. And I can see that that's something that kind of reflected him as a human or as an actor as well. And I think if you started to look at it, each of them had similar types of moments where a line was put in there that reflected their philosophies as actors or as humans.
So overall, and I think I said this to Mom when I went to see it the night before you did, but ultimately, I thought it was, if you enjoyed the original, I don't have any issue thinking that you'd enjoyed the sequel.
Correct. I had a lot of fun with it.
Good. But I think that'll do it for us this week. Thank you for listening. I do wish we could chat longer, but I'm having an old friend for dinner. Next week for our 312th episode, we are set to discuss The Killing from 1956, celebrating its 70th anniversary. Written and directed by Stanley Kubrick, cinematography by Lucien Ballard, music by Gerald Freed, editing by Betty Steinberg, starring Sterling Hayden, Colleen Gray, Vince Edwards, and J.C. Flippin. You won't want to miss that one, so watch ahead of the show by searching the Real Good app to find where it's streaming for you. That's REELGOOD. Please like, follow, rate, and review, or whatever on whichever platform you have so that more can join in on our fun. You can also email the show at RonnieDuncanStudios.com or at GreatestAllTimeMoviePodcast@gmail.com, or find us on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, Letterboxd, Threads, Blue Sky, or TikTok at the handle @GModePodcast. The Greatest Movie of All Time is a production of Ronnie Duncan Studios. Our show is mixed, edited, and written by Thomas Duncan. Our music is thanks to Purple Planet Music. Our distributor is Captivate FM. Our technical provider is Riverside FM.